Welcome to On the Nature of Evil, Part 1. This is going to be a video series that helps people to understand what evil actually is, because I think there is a lot of misconceptions. People have been raised on this idea of this battle between good and evil, and oftentimes that's attached to their personal ego. So what they view in the world as evil is actually just resistance in their life, not necessarily bad, although sometimes it is evil. But it's important to draw the distinction between things that are just hard in life or things that have been given a bad rap that aren't actually bad, and the things that are actually evil. And so this is just going to be an introductory class to get your minds thinking in a new way, which is going to help you to understand the very nature of reality and what it meant when Adam and Eve ate the fruit of the knowledge of the good and evil at the tree in the Garden of Eden, what that actually meant symbolically. Metaphorically, and then of course translating in a literal sense. By the way, this video series is a special thanks to everyone that donated to my cause about a month ago when I was going through it. Thank you very much. As a special thanks specifically to them. Anybody who would donate to me in the past, there'll be a small section at the end, 15 minutes or so, for any questions and answers they have. And then every 2 weeks, we're going to do just a question and answer session for about an hour. And people are going to just ask me questions. I want to focus on the nature of evil, but they're going to be a little bit of free form, freestyle, so you can ask other questions as well. So everyone at TikTok Live, if you want to be a part of the YouTube video, the link is in the bio, okay? Or you can just watch it here. But I won't be able to see your questions unless you're on the YouTube Live. So let's get started. I'm going to pop up these comments. How you doing, Renee? Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's get started. A lot of people assume that what good and evil is like God is good and wants the world to be a certain place, and then the devil, right, is this person that's always, or this being that's weaving these webs of evil, okay? Now, there's a real issue in the Abrahamic religions, especially modern Christianity, that views anything outside of their religion as evil, as the devil. And this just isn't true at all. In fact, most of the things they say are evil are actually incorporated deeply into their religion. They just don't understand their religion because they've had preachers and pastors and priests on the pulpit giving them a bunch of lies. So this is what evil actually is, okay? For one, what we view as evil is usually just suffering. Okay, but evil and suffering are not synonymous. So, for instance, if someone comes into your neighborhood and starts robbing people, right, and steals from them and steals from you, right, you'll suffer from that, and you see that as an evil, right? Or a hurricane comes through and destroys your house. That's an evil in a sense because it's a pain point. It's caused you stress. It caused you suffering, and a lot of people will be in that moment and be like, God, why did you do this to me? Or God, why did you allow this to happen? Right. And so they see this as an evil because, if they think it's a bad thing that happened to them and it shouldn't have happened, then that would be one definition of evil. But that's not entirely the case. The first thing we have to understand is the God that many people are trying to worship is twofold, right? It's actually two different gods that were blended into one. There is the God of creation. Okay. This is Brahma. This is the all. This is what scientists call everything. It's an actual technical definition in science. It's all things known and unknown in all of the universe, all places that we could ever go inside of reality. That's one aspect of God. Let me get into this conversation of creator versus the created. But for all intents and purposes, because we can't see past all of reality in the universe, we have to suppose what God is through its creation. So that's the only evidence we have. That's how the alchemists understood it. To know God is to know what God made, because we've never been able to sit down and have a conversation directly with the being that is responsible for this reality. Although maybe that being is this reality. Maybe this reality is a dream, those types of conversations. So if God encompasses all things, God is both good and evil. God is all possibilities. The true one God on high, the tetragrammaton. Right? The hyperdimensional geometric lattice of creation. In the tree of life, it's the top sphere which emanates down and creates all other spheres of reality. Okay, the 11th dimension. When you take DMT and you see the fifth dimensional objects, the Fabergé eggs, the magical elves. That is the throne of God. What that is basically a timeless place with multiple dimensions. The reason it exists is because in order for us to live in this reality of 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time, or process of space, there needs to be a back end that is more advanced, that can basically create any given situation in every moment, so it can project that reality into this one. It's kind of like when we're on the internet and it's all this 2-dimensional space, zeros and ones. There needs to be this advanced coding in the back end and this 4th dimensional reality to build the 2-dimensional reality of the internet, which is zeros and ones, 2 dimensions. You might argue 3, zeros and ones, and electricity, which causes the zeros and ones to project a reality in the internet. You understand? So the internet would be a level of reality down from our 4th dimensional reality. So it has a reality with essentially 3 dimensions, but it requires a higher dimensional reality in order for it to exist. This is the same thing for our reality. That's what God's throne is. This higher dimensional reality, which allows everything to exist. We won't go on a tangent, but I want you to understand this because it helps you understand what good and evil is. So this undifferentiated, unbiased, creative force, we'll call that the highest God, the Tetragrammaton, is not necessarily concerned with the plight or destiny of human beings specifically. It appears, based on alchemy, based on many studies, Kabbalah and all that, that God, whatever God is genuinely interested in all aspects of creation, living and non-living, conscious and unconscious, human and Komodo dragon. We're going to use this Komodo dragon metaphor. It's going to be really helpful for you to understand exactly what's happening here. So in that case, then, what we're dealing with evil, we have to parse it out because there is no inherent evil. So let's go to this Komodo dragon example, okay? If you're stranded on an island that is barren, basically, except for a few things that you can eat, and unfortunately, Komodo dragons. The Komodo dragon wants to eat you, right? What you see in that situation is an evil or a bad thing. That Komodo dragon wants to eat you. That's a sad thing. And if you're religious and you're not awakened yet, you'll think, why did I get put in this thing? The devil's, possessing this lizard. There's a bunch of different ways you'll view this situation as an evil. From the Komodo dragon's perspective, it's a good, because now he has a meal, right? Maybe he's only been snacking on squirrels and now he actually can get a full meal. Maybe he's on his deathbed. If he doesn't get a good meal soon, he'll die. Then eating you is a good to him. So when we take ourselves out of the position of being like the divine being that is better than all the other beings, and we see ourselves as just an aspect of the reality, one experiment in consciousness or biological life that isn't better or worse than anybody. If all the honeybees were off the earth all of a sudden, we'd all perish because there'd be very little pollination of trees that bear the fruit and vegetables. So when we pull ourselves back a little bit and try to access this God consciousness, this idea of samadhi, seeing everything from this raised position, then we can understand that it's not evil for the Komodo dragon to eat us because it's good for him and it's an evil for us. So there's some contention there. So evil is not real outside of the human experience. This is the major lesson we have to learn. Evil still exists, but it exists inside the human sphere. And how do we figure out what evil is? We define it together. So here's how that works. Think of all the things that if they happened to you, they would just be inherently bad. There'd be no positive thing to it. Everyone says everything happens for a reason. Well, that's not exactly true. Like, not a divine reason. There's not always a plan to your suffering, okay? But think of the things that would cause you suffering that wouldn't be helpful. Like if someone critiques you, like let's say we were wearing like really non-fitting clothes and you always look kind of not that great in public, and a friend goes, hey, you got to wear a size down, you look sloppy. That may hurt your feelings, but it's productive criticism, especially if they do it in the right way. Like if they pull you aside, like, hey man, like let's go shopping, man. I can help you out, da-da-da-da-da-da. That may cause you suffering because your ego hurts, but it's ultimately a good, because it improves your position in the world, makes you feel better because you look better, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if that same friend did that in front of all your other friends and embarrassed you without help, didn't offer to help you dress better afterwards, you said, oh, you look stupid today. That's different. And this is how we parse out evil and good. So lying to you, cheating you or cheating on you, stealing from you, hurting you with violence up until death. Those are evils. Are they universal evils? No, because if you get eaten by a tiger in the jungle, the tiger doesn't go to tiger hell for eating you. You see what I'm saying here? See where this is going? So the evils are defined by us. And what are they defined by? The very nature of our biological being. And then we create what's called social agreements. So all those things that you wouldn't want done to you, lying, cheating, stealing, killing, right? Embarrassment, any kind of psychological, emotional, or physical violence. These are the actual evils of the world. And where do they come from? They come from a murder in your heart, a willing and willful sinning against another person. And that violates the 2 commandments. So we have to see evil this way. A lot of people will say, I'm a moral relativist, okay? A lot of people will give me a hard time and say, well, you just want to be able to do whatever you want. No. I'm a moral relativist because morality is relative. It's relative to the justice system. Now, the Mongolian Empire, the hordes of nomadic warriors that would go around pillaging and stealing from all these different tribes and taking over. To everyone else, that was evil. To everyone else, that was bad. To Mongolians, they didn't care less. In their system, in their philosophical social system, there was nothing wrong with what they did. They were stronger, they were faster, they were smarter. They took advantage, right? But so for them, there was no morality issue there. They didn't struggle with that when they went to bed. They lived by that code, okay? But on a human scale. Like if that would have happened to them, they'd be upset about it, right? Therefore, it's an evil of human beings. We have to establish these things sort of synthetically. They don't exist without us. We have to establish a rule of law in the world, okay? So let's discuss how this translates to figuring out, for instance, everyone talks about, what's going on here? Why is the world falling apart? It is because of evil. It is because of human evils. How do we figure out who's doing it? A lot of people will name this group or this philosophy and that philosophy, but it's deeper than that. We have to really examine what murder in your heart actually means, okay? Let's go back to the story of Cain and Abel. When Cain strikes down Abel, what are the many mistakes that he makes? Okay. First off, he doesn't give a good offering, whatever that means. I've got my own theory. A lot of people will disagree with what that means, but I think what it means is Cain doesn't give the best of his offering because Abel gives the first of his flock. Abel gives just a random offering. Abel's willing to go out of his way, give the shirt off his back to do what is right. That's the message for me. Cain just kind of gives a haphazard, apathetic offering to God. Which what that means is not that they necessarily went to the offering and made a burnt offering, more like taking care of the rest of the community, taking care of the earth. Cain could care less. Abel went out of his way to make sure his community was fed, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's what's actually happening. Because by blessing God's children, you bless God, right? Burning the old ways of offerings and sacrifice of just burning things for no reason. That was done. But the deeper thing here is to make a personal sacrifice for the betterment of the world, because that's God's creation and God would want that. God doesn't need your help, right? Personally, you don't need to do anything specifically for God. I'm sure God would just want you to treat the world well, treat his children well, et cetera, et cetera. So Cain doesn't give the best offering he can give. He doesn't go out of his way to do well. He's only doing well because he thinks that's what he's supposed to do to be blessed. That's his first mistake. The second one is when he approaches God and says, why wasn't I blessed? And God doesn't answer him, possibly because God knows that Cain should be able to figure it out himself by learning from his brother Abel, seeing what Abel did. Instead of seeing like, okay, maybe Abel is doing something I didn't figure out yet and I can learn from him, he just automatically takes it to his ego and just like, well, Abel's not better than me. So then that's the second mistake, not understanding that it was his own shortcomings. Third mistake, what does he do? He gets rid of Abel. Why does he get rid of Abel? Because Abel's a reminder that Cain isn't operating at the highest level, that Abel's first and Cain is second. When Cain eliminates Abel, Cain becomes first. And this is the first story of murder in the heart of a human being. And what is said about Cain? He is cursed, and his generations are cursed. Why? Because when Cain sheds blood, it's epigenetically layered on his genes. He has a propensity for violence now. He's predisposed to commit violence quicker. That's the science, folks. That's what's most interesting about this, is that the science will tell you if you commit violence, you're more likely to do it again. And when you bear children, they will be more likely to commit violence. The Bible told us this thousands of years ago. Science proves it now. So evil is fundamentally cheating, stealing, killing, lying, because no one wants that done to them. We're just in a collective agreement. It's very objective. It's very logical and reasonable. It's not magical. Okay, it's not supernatural, but the supernatural element is the next interesting thing that you guys are going to really like, because we're going to talk about demons. Demons. This is extremely important. So I'm of the opinion that demons are real. Demonic forces, archons, the jinn, whatever you want to call them. Okay, there is a supernatural force, a sort of electrical or electromagnetic being, a sort of organized frequency of consciousness that exists in our reality. Remember, we only perceive 0.2% of the universe. 99.8% of the universe is not detectable by the 5 human senses. With some instruments, technological instruments, we've increased that bandwidth. But the human itself can only perceive 0.2% of the universe. You're telling me that the entire intelligent, conscious, living ecosystem exists inside that 0.2%? It's ridiculous. It's the same thing as when people say there's billions of planets, millions of galaxies and millions of suns in each one of those and several planets on each sun. How could there not be life? Same thing. There is 500 times more reality that you can't see. How could there not be something else there? Interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call them. A demon is a parasite and a predator, the same way a Komodo dragon is. That's what people don't understand about these things. They're programmed to do what they do. In fact, many of them were made by us. Okay, these are tulpas. These are called rogue tulpas. They get made to do a task by a creator. That creator doesn't finish them off, recycle their energy. The creator passes on. The demon runs rampant. This is the story of Solomon. Solomon has the Solomon's keys. He controls all the demons. And when he passes on, he buries all of those books under the temple so no one can use them again. So he locks those spirits into a behavior, like to listening to him. Remember the story where Solomon, after he dies, he leans on his cane to make the demons think that he's still alive. This is a metaphoric story too. Solomon maintains the leashes on all the spirits after death, buries them under the temple, secures them. The demons still follow Solomon even after he passes. But what happens? The Knights Templar excavate Al-Aqsa and they find the books and they re-release the demons. This is what the Templars did. That's why the Templars went from just being humble protectors on the pilgrimage to some of the richest people in the world in a matter of maybe a year or two. That's because they found the spells. They reopened the books. They reopened Pandora's box. Pandora's box was originally created in Atlantis. We created a spiritual technology equivalent to a nuclear weapon, but in the supernatural world. The Atlanteans figured out that you could create thought forms. When you thought, you could make things. The Atlanteans were up against a war with essentially the Khazars. And they used a spiritual technology. They used basically the original black magic. They used these spirits to wage war. What they didn't understand is you had to put a cancel button, a deactivate button on these things, and they didn't. So after these things waged their war, they became rogue. And what were they programmed to do? Attack, destroy, take energy. How are they built? By thinking about them, by feeling, and giving your actual personal energy from your bioelectric field. So if you create an animal like that, and you feed it with thoughts, emotions, and your electrical energy, and then it becomes a free agent. How is it going to survive? The same way, by feeding on your thoughts, emotions, and personal energy. What does a demon do? This is what happened. This is the truth. This is why Atlantis was flooded, because all those demons actually caused a natural phenomenon to occur. And the place had to be cleaned out. So I'm sure there was other forces at work that made sure that they quarantined the earth and flushed everything out. So the demons aren't the inherent evil. They're not like this. They're not the epitome of evil. They don't rise from some evil force in the universe. They were created many times by us, and they were created to do certain tasks. And we made them with our thoughts and emotions and energy. Therefore, they live off of those things. So they had to become parasitic and predatory. They're not evil. They live within the ecosystem now. Just the same way a tiger would want to eat you, a demon wants to use your energy. So it's not evil, right? Not in the traditional sense that we've used it as. So that's another thing we have to understand. Okay, I hope you're really thinking about all these things deeply, because in order to understand the evil in the world and how we overcome it, we have to understand these things first. We have to accept and surrender to these difficult truths. The third evil, okay, is again not evil. It's what the devil is. The devil in the tarot. Does anybody understand what the devil in the tarot cards is? I'll actually give you about 20 seconds to tell me what the devil actually means. I'm gonna take a little drink of water while you guys are thinking about it. $5 to anybody that gets it. The devil is nature. Yes, jokester, trickster. Armando, send me a message in TikTok. Send me your Cash App or whatever. I'll shoot you $5. Jokester, trickster is definitely close enough. Okay, so the devil is actually the aggravating forces of nature and the trickster energy. Yes. So essentially, the devil can be when you're in the forest and you start getting hunted by a tiger. This is suffering. But what are you supposed to do with that suffering? Overcome it by gaining a knowledge of how to calm the tiger down or kill the tiger before it gets you. This is Agramon in Zoroastrianism. We have the battle between Agramon and Ahura Mazda, the forces of good and evil, right? But what is good and evil? Because the word evil didn't mean evil back then. We've really screwed up mistranslations here. For instance, in the Babylonian culture and their language, evil is actually the word lie. So for them, lying was synonymous with evil, and they didn't have a separate word for evil. And that word lie was connected to many other etymological roots in Babylonian, which meant to curse with your mouth, to say a thing that would cause pain or suffering unnecessarily to another person. That was the basis, the fundamental basis of evil in the Babylonian culture. So when we talk about Agramon and Ahura Mazda, it's one of the most important examples. By the way, if you want to understand every Abrahamic religion and most Indo-Aryan religions, you need to understand Zoroastrianism. It is the divine. It is the closest to the truth as far as institutionalized religions, because Zoroastrianism was more like mysticism anyway. The mystic traditions had the actual truth. What's been institutionalized out of mystic traditions is just a control system. Gnosticism to Orthodox Christianity, Sufism to Islam, Kabbalism to Judaism, okay? And many other examples. The mystic tradition is the truth. What we have today with our institutions is the lie. It's the spiritual control system. We'll talk about that in a part in the future, how that happened and who's responsible for this. Okay, so Agramon and Ahura Mazda. These are the two fundamental forces of the universe. There aren't four fundamental forces of the universe. They'll tell you that because they're confused. This is why they can't create their theory of everything in physics and quantum physics, okay? I'm going to tell you something that I guarantee you, hopefully within the next decade, science will figure out, but they haven't figured out yet. There are only two fundamental forces. Okay? Expansion and contraction. Expansion and collapse. Ahura Mazda is synonymous with the expansion of the universe. Agramon, the devil, is synonymous with the contracting forces of the universe, the nature of good and the nature of evil. Because collapse would mean the destruction of the universe and the lack of our existence. Now, how does this explain how does quantum physics explain this, or how does physics explain this? Electromagnetism and gravity are the first children of expansion and contraction. Here's how the universe actually works, okay? We're not getting off too much on a tangent. This is all part of good and evil. There is a force that exists outside of our reality. It moves energy into this reality. It's like the God particle, the prima materia. When that prima materia enters into our four-dimensional universe, so you have 3 dimensions of space, and in every Planck length, it's a physics term, every Planck length of space in our reality is a pixel, just like a simulation. And at every Planck length, there is a mini black hole, and energy can enter in. When that energy enters in, it aggravates the fabric of space-time at that Planck length, which can produce one of 18 subatomic particles at every Planck length. And when you build those out, you can create proton, neutron, electron, and you create atoms. As that happens, it expands out that fabric of space-time. All of space-time is interlaced with a near infinite amount of strings. You may remember Albert Einstein's comparison of space-time being a trampoline. You put a bowling ball in the middle, and you swing billiard balls around it. And the billiard balls will spin, just like a planet. That's a rudimentary example. I think Albert Einstein understood it better, but he wanted to make it simplified. What we're actually dealing with is a near infinite amount of trampolines glued together at every Planck length in space-time. When the energy enters in from the 11th dimension into the Planck length and expands, you stretch the strings, creating instant tension. That tension is agramon. The expansion entering in this energy into our reality is Ahura Mazda. Expansion versus contraction. The more you expand, the more force on contraction. That's why the bigger the planet, the greater the gravity. But it's such a weak force that appears to be entering in from another dimension. Okay? Now, electromagnetism and gravity are basically the effects of these two fundamental forces. Strong and weak nuclear force are the quantum version. It's a level of magnitude down, which are the exact same as gravity and electromagnetism. Gravity's not that it's not real. Gravity is just, I'm explaining to you right now what gravity is. Gravity is the tension from all the strings. As you expand energy into that little hole of Planck length from the other dimension and it expands, you stretch the strings and they want to come back to collapse. This is the spiritual war between Agramon and Ahura Mazda. Expansion of the universe and the tension created from those strings, which wants to collapse again. So it's a battle of good and evil. Okay, so that's the next step we have to understand. So the devil is contraction. The devil is entropy, which seeks to disorganize things. The devil is when you put an ice cube in warm water, the ice cube melts and everything wants to go to equilibrium. That is the devil. That's the force of nature challenging you to find more organized ways to exist. Okay. Any questions? I'll actually allow questions from TikTok as well. Any questions, hit me up. I want to take a little break to make sure that everyone's understanding everything that I'm saying. Yeah, hit me up with any questions you have, because I'd like to answer those so that people can understand this deeply. Any confusions you have, please ask. This is part of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism explains the nature of reality. The divine fire of Zoroastrianism is the prima materia in alchemy. It's the one like element or energy which is undifferentiated. It's like the philosopher's stone in a sense. It can be turned into anything. So the prima materia enters into space-time through the 11th dimension, God's throne, the third heaven. And as soon as it enters, the vector it enters, the energy intensity creates one of the 18 subatomic particles. We live in a base 18 reality. Just like, when we use base 16 or base 10 or base 2 in our simulations in our internet, we live in a base 18 reality, 18 subatomic particles. So this is what evil is. Let's cover it again. Evil is when we suffer and confuse it with evil. Whatever kind of suffering we have, that's one. It could be something random like a hurricane in your house. You will see that as an evil because you're suffering, but it's not evil. It's just suffering. So you need to toss that one out forever in your life. Anytime you feel suffering, the first thing you should be doing isn't why God, why? You should be saying, why me? Why? Like asking yourself, how did I get into this situation? Why am I suffering right now? So remove that layer of evil. Then there's the evil that we define, because evil isn't actually real. We just define what are bad things that humans shouldn't do. That's meant to improve the well-being of all people and improve the well-being of reality. Okay? It's to create more organization in our civilization so the devil, entropy, can't tear us apart. Because, like, for instance, if you don't have a trust-based network in your society, meaning people, for the most part, trust each other, society breaks down and nature, the devil, picks you apart and redistributes your resources to reality. When empires fall, it's because they've been riddled with evil, distrust, corruption, senators taking money, et cetera, and Rome falls. It's picked apart by entropy, because entropy is always trying to pick you apart. Okay? A battery is a perfect example of an organized system that resists entropy over time. A battery can be stored for a long period of time and it can hold a lot of energy. What that's basically doing is coming against entropy. That's agramon. A battery is an agramon force, a force of expansion, organizing and protecting a bunch of organized systems of energy that you can use at any time. Human beings are constantly trying to figure out how we can store and keep more energy, more organization in our society. This is how we resist nature's desire to equalize everything. And the higher you organize yourself, the more, think about this, the better you do in life, right? You have to worry about more people trying to tear you down. That's the force of entropy and the psychological aspects of human beings. The bigger you get, the more money you make, the more people try to steal it from you. That's entropy. The hotter the water and the colder the ice, that when you put the ice in the water, the faster it seeks equilibrium at first. You think it just goes at the same rate all the time? No. The more difference between the two temperatures, the quicker they will equalize. The more money you have, the more people will try to equalize you down to zero and take your money. This is all entropic forces. This is agramon. This is the devil. It's not a being that's trying to destroy you. It's the very nature of reality. Okay? Well, many aspects of evil are esoteric. So now let's focus on what evil we have to actually worry about. Corruption, dishonesty, thievery, violence. You see all the things going on in the world. Native Americans, Aborigines, Palestinians, we can go on and on and on. That's evil. That's the evil that matters that we should be seeking out. And what does everyone do? It's the elites. It's this group of people. It's this philosophy. It's the Freemasons. No. You judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. What we need to start doing, thank you very much, Brooke Davis. What we need to start doing is focusing on each individual thing happening and judge if it's an evil. How do we mark evil? Again, lying, cheating, killing, stealing, violence, physical, emotional, spiritual, intellectual violence. These are the evils. We need to start picking out each individual person doing that, willful and willing sinning, and call them out on the main stage. Folks, we have a power that they don't want us to understand. And all we have to do is talk. All we have to do is make a video. They're having a harder and harder time censoring and canceling us. We call out the evil. We make it so painful for them to continue doing that. Now, there can be evil philosophies as well. So someone mentioned the Z word. I'm just being careful because the account almost got banned when I did a couple of videos speaking out for those people who are being abused right now. So I'm just being a little careful, but someone mentioned the Z word as a philosophy. Yeah, people who believe in the Z word believe that they're better and that the rest of us are cattle and that we should be treated as such. That's an evil philosophy because it allows for lying, cheating, killing, stealing of other people. So it's inherently evil in the human sphere. And this is what we need to be concerned with. So if there's anything you can really take away from this, besides all the things I've been talking about, take this. Do not judge a group. Do not judge whether it's ethnic, whether it's an organization, whether it's a political affiliation. That's not what's evil unless the doctrine, the philosophy actually justifies evil things. So we need to start focusing on each individual. You need to start vetting, okay? So let's use a couple examples of evil actions and what you can do to defend yourself against them. I would like to cover a lot of these ideas again in part 2, but give you more summary examples because what I just gave you for the first 30 minutes, I understand how deeply occult, esoteric, and higher level stuff it is. And I really want you to all understand everything I just said. So we might cover it a little bit in part 2, but we're also going to be covering more of individual interactions with people, okay? So the YouTube link is right in my bio. That's how you'll get to my YouTube. You can follow the page and you can watch from there as well. So first, we're going to actually answer a question. Don't tread on Mikey. Mike Yankee only missed like 10 minutes. So you're good. And this will be on YouTube afterwards. You can watch it over and over again if you like. Yeah, this will be on YouTube forever. What verses in the Bible support your belief of Christ consciousness? Does the majority of the Bible support this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is a really good question, a counter question. I'm going to answer yours too. But here's a question. How many times does it explicitly say that Jesus died for your sins? Not once. There's bits and pieces here and there, but they're bad translations in English. In the Aramaic, in the Greek, and the Hebrew, doesn't say it. Never says it. Not once does it say that Jesus died for your sins in any explicit way. Maybe after Jesus passes and people start writing new stuff in the Bible, Jesus never explicitly says it. When you ask a Christian, like someone that's really scholarly that knows it, they'll give you 3-4 different verses from completely different parts of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, and then they'll say that's what this means, but it doesn't explicitly say it. There's no verses I've ever been given, and I've asked quite a few times. There's no verses that explicitly say from Christ's mouth himself, because Christ would be the one that would know, right? If anyone knew that could say it to you, if anything's new, if anyone could tell you that Christ died for your sins, it'd be Christ himself. Okay? He never says it. He says, the wine is my blood and it's represented for the sins of the people. That's not him saying, I'm going to have to be crucified and it's going to be an old school blood sacrifice. So all the people of the world through entirety will be absolved of sin. Nowhere does it say that. So, but it does say you will do far greater things than I. Jesus does say that. With faith the size of a mustard seed, you will move mountains. Right? It does say that. He says you will cast out demons. You will heal the lepers. You will feed the hungry. It does say that. You will perform miracles. He does say that. He says that you will do everything that he did. What's the differentiation at that point that makes you different from Christ? Which you can't be Christ conscious. Nothing besides what the Vatican lied to you about, saying that he was God who became man and not man who became God conscious. Everything supports it. And then the 600 books that were removed, tons of those books support it as well. Giving your life to the ransom of many can mean many things. That's not saying that whatever bad things you do, his blood protects you. That's saying that he put his life on the line for the good of the world. That's my point. Like the one you just brought, you were sure that it said Christ died for our sins. That's not what it says. To give your life. How many people have given their life as a ransom for many? Bob Marley did that. Mahatma Gandhi did that. Martin Luther King Jr. did that. They gave their life for the ransom of many because they gave their life to save a people. They gave their life to liberate India, to incorporate African Americans into a society where they were treated equally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what that phrase means, by the way. Not that he was literally crucified and his blood was an actual magical ritual to absolve people of sins in entirety. So let that sink in. All right, so let's get back to this. So let's say you're dealing with a person who is evil. Now, when we deal with, and Jesus wept for the world, but that's him giving his life for ransom. That's him seeing how terrible things are and dedicating his life to being better. All right. You're very welcome, Beats by Draven. So yeah, if you have any other verses you'd like to pop up, we can talk a little bit about that because it does connect quite a bit. Because we're waiting for Jesus to come back and solve the evil, when what we should be doing is solving the evil ourselves. And how do we do that? Because by being critical, right? Cunning as a fox, peaceful as a dove, however the verse goes. We need to be the ones that enact justice. When people say what goes around comes around, that's just a statement made by fearful people that are too afraid to stand up against injustice. When Christ returns, however that happens, which I believe it will happen, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but Christ will return. And when Christ returns and the people go to him and they say, yeah, I cast out demons for you, I did this, that, and the third, he says, depart from me, I do not know you. That will be the people that expected him to save the day instead of doing what he instructed them to do. We need to rid the world of evil. We need to stop saying God will sort them out. We need to stop saying what goes around comes around. You want to know why what goes around comes around? Because we make it happen. We come around. Right? There's tons of people that have done evil things and never got in trouble for it. Why? Because there is no magical mechanic in the universe that solves that evil. Because like I said, evil is relativistic to our experience. God isn't out here stopping evil things from happening. A lot of atheists will make the argument, well, if God's so almighty and if he exists, then why doesn't he stop the evil in the world? That's because atheists are confused about what God means. But so are Christians. So are many people. They're thinking that God's out there trying to make things better. No, God's out here letting you figure it out for yourself. That's why he gave you free will. This is an experiment in consciousness. We need to be the ones that rid evil in the world and stop waiting for someone to do it for us. It's lazy. No. I don't mean to pick on the people who believe in the blood of Christ doctrine, but it's bullshit. It's stupid. I'm sorry. And it's not your fault because you've been indoctrinated and poisoned with it since you were a child. And you were made to be terrified of speaking against it. And every time you had a question like, well, this doesn't quite make sense. What did they tell you? Sit down, shut up. Stop asking questions. It just works this way. No. Lies. Absolute lies. Why would they do that? Because they don't want a bunch of Christ-conscious people. Look what the problems they had with one Christ, with Jesus Christ. He could have took down the entire Roman Empire with a philosophical movement, a gospel of peace. Imagine if there was 100 back then. Would those 99 have let Christ get crucified? Absolutely not. They would have tore down the walls of Rome. So what did they do? They told you that you couldn't be like him. They told you that, wait, evil will be solved by itself. And it never comes because you're supposed to do it. You're the hero of the story. Don't forget that. You rid evil out of the world. You put good into it. They did this so that they would get away with all the terrible things they do. I don't care if it's the Vatican, Zionism, it doesn't matter. They're all synagogue of Satan. The Illuminati's infiltration into many organizations. This was meant to take over the world, okay? And convince everyone that we couldn't do anything about it and that we should wait for Christ to come back. That's just so that they can keep on kicking pushing the goalpost. So we keep waiting for the thing to be solved and it never does. They just get away with more evil and make their system even more powerful. We run out of time every day that we don't stand up against evil ourselves. So what is evil? One of the best ways to examine evil is through the dark triad personality disorders, right? You've got sociopathy, you got psychopathy, psychopathy, sociopathy, and the personality disorders. This is evil. Why? Why? What happens? You know the guy that wrote the book Child called It. Okay. Why is it that that person went through so many terrible things and still became a force for good in the world, saving many children, revolutionizing a certain aspect of psychology and how we care for children, how we protect them from violence? But then why do other people become terrible and choose after terrible things happening to them to give them to other people? It's a choice. It's the battle between the good wolf and the bad wolf. If you feed the bad wolf, you become the bad wolf. Just like Cain. Once he committed violence against his brother, he was more susceptible to committing violence again. It is literally in every moment, every decision we make, we either become better or worse, more good or more evil. This is the nature of evil. Every time we choose to lie, every time we choose to get bitter because someone did something to us, and then we do something more terrible to the next person, instead of just doing righteous justice against a person that hurt us. It's when we become bitter and angry and we let our emotions get the best of us and we act in our emotions in negative ways. This is evil. And every time we do it, it'll be easier the next time. Okay? Now, here's a really important thing you need to accept and surrender to. It's going to be a really hard one. Evil has an advantage. Evil has the immediate advantage over good. Why? Here's the example. Who is the one person that can beat Batman? Hands down, no matter what. Maybe some people might have watched my video. I want to see if anyone can guess this. By the way, the person that was already here that got the answer right, make sure you message me. Put it in the message request. I'll check the message request afterwards. But I want people to answer me. Who is the one person guaranteed, no question about it, can beat Batman hands down every single time? If Batman's got some kryptonite, evil Batman. Exactly, Lisa. Message me, Lisa. We'll send you $5 as a thank you. It's evil Batman. Is the only being that is guaranteed to beat Batman. Why? Because evil Batman will put a gun on his holster and Batman won't. Evil Batman will run PR campaigns against good Batman and say that Batman does evil things. Evil Batman will lie. Evil Batman will kill, steal, cheat. The regular Batman won't. That means that the evil Batman has more options. So immediately he has an advantage. It's a very difficult thing to come to terms with. But whatever evil is in the human sphere, as we define it, it has an advantage. That's why psychopaths rule the world. It's not some magical supernatural thing. It's just objectively makes sense. But the only reason evil continues to have an advantage is because they broke up organization of good people. Good people pray, evil people pray harder. Christians pray, Satanists pray harder and better. They're better at magic because they're dedicated to their cause of taking over the world. That's why they're winning, because they're more organized. They spend more of their time doing their destruction and chaos. We sit here reacting to them, trying to say, oh, look what they did today. I bet they did it because of this, that, and the third. That's why we're losing, because all we ever do is react and talk about it and do commentary. They're in the trenches all the time. They think of nothing but overcoming us. Nietzsche talks about will to power. You put your will in the world, you accrue power. That power is then applied to your will once again, and the will becomes stronger. That stronger will gains even more power the next time. It's exponential. Psychopaths are will to power all the time. That's why they run every single company, every single government. That's why they're winning. That's why they don't go to jail, because they pay all the police departments, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day about how Scythians, yeah. Oh, it's funny that you say that. Yeah, we'll get into that soon. So that's why evil's winning, guys. Not because it's this ultimate battle of good and evil where everything's just going to be sorted out. We have to sort it out. It's us. So we have to be the ones praying harder and better. We're the ones that have to get organized. Do you understand me? Good has a long-term advantage. Evil eventually destroys the world because it's the individual pursuit for power. And the individual pursuit for power lays waste and destruction on its path. That destruction and waste will eventually shake the foundations and make them brittle, and the whole thing comes down. We've seen it over and over again. The cycle of empires is actually just evil destroying civilizations. because people choose to do the shortcut and get their pay individually and hurt anything around them. It's the very nature of evil. It's the very nature of entropy. Do you see how complicated the situation is? It's not as easy as a story from the Bible, a single story about don't worry about it, good will overcome. Why will good overcome, folks? Because there's some guy in the clouds waiting for the perfect moment to like just jump in and make it like some really cool Avengers movie? Come on. Come on. We're terrified to admit the truth. Evil has an advantage, but good has its own advantage. Because when good puts good into the world in order, everything supports it. Our ancestor spirits support it. Our future children and grandchildren support it. From the future, the earth supports it. The civilization supports it. Anybody in their right mind does not want to be stolen from, hurt, cheated on, lied to. Anybody in their right mind. Anyone in their really right mind understands that if it hurts them, they shouldn't do it to somebody else. So if we're all doing that, what happens to the world? It instantly becomes good. If we're all doing the good, what happens to all the evil? It gets really loud, and we see exactly who's doing it. And then we publicly embarrass that person. You understand, these old tribes and communities, when they caught someone like stealing, they tie them to a post for 2 days and flog them and embarrass them. And then when it was over, they'd forgive them, and then it didn't happen again. We lost it. Guys, the only reason that the world's falling apart like this is because the Commonwealth is not organized anymore, because they purposely disorganized us. Corporations are organized, politics are organized, the military is organized, the media is organized, the Commonwealth isn't. We don't have a mission statement. We keep talking about wanting the world to be better, and I can't believe we live in this global communist state or whatever the heck, blah, 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 blah. What are we doing about it, though? What are we actively doing every day? They can't throw everyone in prison. They can't censor and cancel everybody, but we don't work together. Police brutality. You're on the corner in New York City, and there's 3 cops beating on one person for doing something that wasn't illegal, but there's other reasons that they're doing it. And 15 people are filming it. What's the problem there? What the scenario I just laid out has happened 100 times on New York City corners. So what's the problem there? If there's 3 cops beating on somebody for basically just to be they're just committing tyranny against an individual, and there's 15 people filming the brutality, what's wrong there? What's the problem? Anybody got an answer for me? Three of those people are getting live video. Another 2, yes, exactly. Another 2 are getting videos they can save and post. 10 of them are approaching those policemen, disarming them and making citizens arrests. That's the problem. Why doesn't it happen? It's beyond me. It blows my mind because I'm not going to toot my horn too much. One time I was out at the bar. There was this one guy just wasn't doing anything, just chilling, talking with his buddies. Some guy comes up, sucker punches the guy for no reason whatsoever. That guy goes after that guy to fight him. That's when a cop sees him. They intervene, and the guy that got sucker punched, the cop's trying to arrest. I get right in the middle of him and the cop. And I say, he got sucker punched, man. He wasn't doing anything wrong. The cop wouldn't even listen to me. Get out of the way, or I'll arrest you too. I'll arrest you too. I didn't get out of the way. I said, you're talking to the wrong guy. It's that guy who punched him. Again, threatened to arrest me too. I turn my back on the cop and I looked at the guy and says, hey man, I understand exactly what happened to you. I know it sucks. This guy is not going to listen to me. Let's just go. And I stayed between him and the cop and we walked away. We can do that all the time, folks. That's how we rid evil from the world. We have to give our life up for ransom for many. But we all have to do it. We all have to be brave. All the time. This is how we rid evil out of the world. And we have to rid evil out of our own hearts. We have to ask ourselves what parts of us are like Cain and what parts of us are like Abel. We have to feed the good wolf and starve the evil wolf. I am king. Can't you hear me talk? What do you mean, how am I king? Everyone knows I'm king. So we have to discover the pieces of ourselves that are able and nourish and nurture those. And then we have to look at those parts of ourselves that are evil. Every time like someone does something a little better than us, you feel that tinge of jealousy and you almost think to say something bad. Oh, hey, Lucifer, my bad. I was using it as a moment to remind people of our destiny. I'm doing really well, Lucifer, man. How are you? Good to see you too, Malika. Yeah, and I'm not calling people out like, oh, everyone needs, like, I'm doing so good and everyone. No, I'm not saying that. When I say we need to, I mean me too. I'm not perfect, right? I could be applying this much better. I could be doing way more things in my own life to be less evil and more good and to help other people and inspire other people to do it. So look, it's not, but this is part of the story of Christ, right? What happens to him because he stands up? Terrible things happen to him. Terrible things happen to him. But what if everyone was doing what he was doing? What if it was so loud? What if there was too many to throw into prisons? They wouldn't do it. Here's a great story from Elie Wiesel, who writes, what is it called? Is it Glass Night? I forgot how to say it in German. But he's talking about, I think it's Elie Wiesel, in his book, he's talking about how when the Russians were invading a part of Germany, I forget which part it was, and the Nazis were taking a lot of the Jews and putting them on the road. However you feel about the story or what you think happened is besides the point. It's this metaphor that's actually extremely important. When they were pushing these guys down the road, it was the middle of winter, it was the middle of night, it was terrible, but they needed to move all these people. They started getting tired and they slowed down. And the Germans shot a couple of them, and they shot a couple more. And then after a while, they stopped doing it and they started trying to encourage them in a positive way. Why'd they do that? Because they realized that if they kept doing that, they were going to eliminate everybody and they needed them. That's the situation we're in. We don't realize how much power we actually have because it's only individuals that pop up every now and then and get God. But what if like we all took the example of MLK or Jesus Christ or Gandhi or Russell Brand or Joe Rogan when he stands out? All these folks, Isaac Cappy, that one guy that passed away in DC, allegedly from Minnesota. You can go on and on. Chris Cornell, Avicii, Chester Bennington, Anthony Bourdain. What if we all started acting like that? What if we all went out of our way to show people how terrible things were and not stand for injustice? Rome would fall in a day. But at the same time that we're seeking to right justice in the world, we need to also right justice in ourselves. When we work on the inner temple and we create harmony within our own civilization, these trillions of cells, et cetera, then we emanate a harmony that will know exactly what to do in every situation, which would be the most peaceful resolution. So at the same time that we're ridding evil out of the world, we need to rid evil within ourselves, right? All right, so I think that's a good part one. So let's leave a couple minutes for question and answer, especially those folks who donated to me last month. It was really helpful. So anybody who has done that, let me know, and we'll answer your questions first. And we're going to do a bi-weekly Q&A for an hour, and all those people will be invited as a special thanks. I think Jesus was probably the product of, unfortunately, sexual assault on Mary, either a Roman legion soldier, or the situation was Joseph was actually well, I actually can't go into that. I've got a friend who's got an interesting theory. Anyways, natural birth. I think Christ was a natural birth. He wasn't Anakin Skywalker, is what I'm saying. Do I believe in heaven and hell? No. Not like the way it's taught. No, there's not a place in heaven where everyone goes to be punished forever. That's insane. God gave us free will. Free will. That was his idea. We're talking the mythology of the Bible. God gives us free, the way your idiot priest tells you. God created human beings to have free will. Humans don't do everything perfect. God creates a place for them to go because they're not perfect. God made them imperfect. It's insane. If there's a heaven and hell, then we're living in an evil universe, and we should revolt against it at all times, period. But I think that God, at the end of the day, is what I explained earlier. Therefore, I'm not worried about a heaven and hell. Now, if we do transcend this physical body with our consciousness, then there is a heaven and hell. But it's a heaven and hell that you create while you're here. And when you die, how you feel, where you think, how you think and how you feel is where you go. Because what is the soul but the culmination of your consciousness? So if your physical body dies and your consciousness exists, your consciousness will expand outward and create a dream world. Whatever kind of person you are is the world you'll create, which therefore you'll create a heaven or a hell or somewhere in between. That's probably, if there's anything true to the afterlife in that way, that's what it is. Your soul. We do not incarnate as souls. We individuate into them. I don't think we're a soul that enters into a body. I think it's silly. The mechanics don't work. If you really sit there and try to work out the mechanics of reincarnation and all this other stuff, the way people interpret it now, I think the Hindus and Buddhists understood reincarnation, but it's been twisted. The reincarnation is actually just the God matriculating into all things. And there is a consciousness there. And you do traverse, but it's you as in the you Godhead. But when you come into a physical body, it's possible that your consciousness becomes more organized and you can create a light body like Christ and many yogis, and you can transcend the physical body and continue to exist. That's what Gospel of Thomas, when he says, when you die the little death while you're still alive, you'll never die. You'll never taste death. When you understand that the world is a corpse, you will not die. You understand? This is a secondary reality. This isn't the substantial place. And potentially the pursuit is to individuate yourself into a Merkaba, right? A light body. Individuate your consciousness so it solidifies into a spiritual being. So we don't incarnate as beings. We manifest into them. So our consciousness gets more and more organized until we're able to potentially leave our body and maintain our consciousness. So I'm not saying I believe in that necessarily, but if there was anything true about that, that's what I believe would be happening. Do I believe in rebirth? Yeah. So like that kind of answers the question a little bit, but so yeah, I think it'd be weird if like I die and then I get incarnated into another individual human being. It doesn't make sense to me. Who's in charge of that mechanics? Doesn't seem to make sense. I think consciousness is an emerging quality. Does everyone know what an emerging quality is? It's something that is manifest out of the organization of matter that isn't there from the beginning. So consciousness is a thing that is becoming. Essentially, we are God's fingertips, reaching out into the cosmos, the highest form of consciousness in the known reality. We are made of God and God is within us. So as we become God conscious, God becomes more conscious. It goes against a lot of Abrahamic traditions where everyone thinks, don't say that you're close to God, whatever. But what I think is actually happening here is God is creation. God is the material of the universe, manifested and manifold. And as we become more conscious, God experiences reality through us. As the Buddhists explain, this is a giant hide and seek game to keep Creator busy. Because if Creator didn't matriculate himself into the samsara, into the Maya, he'd be like a small child in a room that doesn't know their parents. So he broke out some coloring books and made a world. That's what's happening, I believe. And that there's potentially an emerging quality where we can individuate ourselves and become little souls made of the Spirit of God. That's the idea that I have. That's what I believe is happening. If You know what I mean? Like I don't marry to any of these things. I don't like wake up in the morning thinking like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And, I don't. Socrates said, I know I am wise because I know nothing. Like I talk about theories. I kind of like hold on to things so that it can help me operate in life, but I don't marry completely to anything, right? But if I was going to pick something, that's what I think the cosmology of the supernatural life after death would probably be. To me, it's got to make sense. It's got to be the most logical. The simplest solution is usually the simplest answer is usually the answer. A person that gives our name I, like you're kind of like boring everybody. No offense. Like have a conversation with people. Like keep an open mind. It's really like no one likes that you're just telling everyone they're wrong. You can't perform miracles. You can't do this. Come on, man. You're like, no offense, you're being boring. That's not how you have a conversation. Ask people questions. Get to know what they believe and why they believe it. You might learn something. Don't come in here and just like try to force your ideas on people. It's so lame. It's so lame. And no one's having fun. And no one cares. Like I've ignored you the whole time because no one cares. If you want to have a cool conversation, have a cool conversation. Thank you. Okay, so is there any more questions people have on the ideas of good and evil? Yes, curiosity over judgment. If you're trying to convert people, one more thing on this. If you're trying to convert people, hopefully, first off, you're trying to convert people because you genuinely think they need this and it's better for them. But I know because of what you believe in that you don't understand what you believe in. No offense, but you don't. Because if you understood what you believe in, you wouldn't believe in it anymore because it's complete nonsense. But like when you make an argument like none of you can perform miracles, therefore everything you believe is wrong. That's silly, man. That's silly. And if you understood what you believe in, you wouldn't believe in it because it doesn't make sense. Hey, what's happening? So not to be rude, but I lose patience for this because I've watched so many people. I'm kind of assuming you're a Christian just based on what you're saying. So many Christians try to force their beliefs on people without one knowing what their beliefs are because they don't understand it. There's a lot of people in here, by the way, that try to give you good information on that. Recommended that you look into like what Jesus means, for instance, the actual name or Gospel of Thomas, right? No one knows what's going on. No, I didn't claim. See, but that's another mistake you're making, right? The person said, this is important actually. So this is, like I said, as I'm answering questions, this is going to be Q&A for the rest of it. This person says, you're claiming to be better or equal to Jesus though. Folks, did I ever claim that the entire time we've been talking? Or did I say that Christ claimed it? And can you find that verse in the Bible? Friend, I don't know your name because it's just an I emoji. We'll just call you I. Is okay? I. Jesus literally said it in your book. You will do far greater things than I. You'd have to at least be equal to Christ, if not better. I am anointed like Jesus. Absolutely. Kundalini energy has gone all the way through. I'm an enlightened being. I don't get it perfect, but neither did Christ. When Christ was a kid, he killed somebody because he pissed him off. He cursed a tree. He wasn't perfect and he wasn't trying to be. He was trying to be his best. You've been convinced by the Vatican that he is deified and perfect. That's not the case. They only did that so that you would be afraid to admit that you could be as good as or greater than Christ. And that's why you're so nervous when I say it, because the Vatican has scared you into not believing it. Well, if you knew what the Father from heaven anointing you meant, yes, the Father from heaven anointed me. Absolutely. There's a God's throne, Tetragrammaton, 11th dimension. There's a God's throne here in a throne room. Right? And what is it? Is it the 12 wise men or the 12 apostles? Those 12 ganglia that turn into your 12 systems of your body? All the same thing, folks. 33 years old, Christ was crucified. 33 vertebrae. When you get to the 33rd one, you're crucified in your mind because the DMT opens up your pineal gland and you're crucified by the truth of reality. And then you're anointed. That's how it works. You want a couple meditations that'll get you there? Kundalini meditations or pranayamas will anoint you. Then you have to be anointed in righteousness, which means you have to do good things and do the right thing. What does Christ say about don't even think evil? Because of the morphogenetic field. When you think, those frequencies go out of your brain, it actually affects reality. Your thoughts, your words, your deeds of righteousness. What is righteousness? It's the virtues, in the Greek virtues. Mercy, justice, compassion, strength, courage, love, meekness. Amongst all those things, meekness is a foundation. So what does meek mean? They tell you meek means to be like quiet and like not rock the boat. That's not what meek means. Meek means to have incredible power and the wisdom to not use it unless it is necessary or it should be done. What is love? Love isn't this toxic positivity, always love's going to win everything. No. Love is loving your neighbor, but love is also unaliving a thief in your house because you're worried that they're going to take your stuff or hurt your children, because you love your children and you love that you have prosperity in your life and you've been blessed. So love is also violence. That's what we have to understand. These are very high dimensional concepts. Like in Arabic, they have it's like 24 words for love. We have one. You love a glass of water the same way you love your mother. It's insane. So we have a really low dimensional understanding. We need to expand the dimensions. We need to make the word love more dynamic. We need to make justice more dynamic. We need to analyze these words and concepts from every single angle. Imagine like a many-faced gemstone of truth. Understand the many facets of these experiences and feelings and thoughts. So yeah, meek is to carry a great sword and have the wisdom to keep it sheathed. That's the actual definition of meek. Which, like Jordan Peterson, which I don't sponsor him anymore just because of the stupid stuff he's been doing lately, but he still said some wise things in the past. He says, cultivate the monster and then get it under control. You have to be able to be a force in the world, be able to be a monster, but then have the wisdom to keep it in check. Yeah, exactly. You're told that meek means timid. It does not mean timid at all. It means tempered, right? Yeah, I can't believe what Jordan's been doing lately. I'm appalled. I'm more upset with him than I am with any other person that's done terrible things because he was a voice of reason. The Holy Spirit is the same thing as chi. Now here's another thing, right? They program you to believe that the 66 books in the Bible are the only things that are true, and all the other 600 that they didn't add in are just they don't make any sense and they shouldn't have been in there. That's a lie. When Jesus was younger, in some of the other Gospels that weren't included in your canonical BS Vatican Bible, Jesus gets really just being messed with a kid and he zaps him, or it might be an adult. He brings him back to life, but and then someone's like, yo, don't do that. And then he resurrects him back to life. And the first thing everyone say, well, that's not in the Bible. So blah, 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 blah. It's like, come on, man. You literally, by the way, you're reading the book that the people that killed Jesus wrote. Think about that. The people that killed Jesus wrote and edited the Bible the book that you read to learn about him. The Victor writes history. Anyone? No, I don't think the whole Bible's BS. I think the Bible that they're using now is loaded with BS. And the priests and the preachers and the pastors on the pulpit lie about it again. They mistranslate what's in there. They misrepresent what's in there. Right? There's tons of stuff in the Bible that's still true. But it was, yes, like the creator said, it was heavily edited in the 1600s. By the way, you know when it was heavily edited? When a bunch of people learned how to read and they created the Gutenberg press and they could mass produce the Bible. Then they edited and made a completely different version. I wonder why. Because before that, only the priests were able to read and decipher the book. Then a bunch of people, the literacy rates went up and the Gutenberg press was created. And all of a sudden they had to make a new version of the Bible that everyone was going to use, King James Version. Come on, guys. This got cover up written all over it. You know what I mean? Like, it should be obvious at this point. Yeah, so when the Gnostics talk about Yaldabaoth, I think there's a lot here, right? They're talking about the Maya. They're talking about, the recycling of energy. It's not necessarily like it's evil. Like it's here. Think of it this way. The Gnostics, the Buddhists, and the Orthodox Christians have the three different ways of looking at the Yaldabaoth, this is a simulation, Loosh factory perspective. The Gnostics have the negative look on it. They're like, this thing is Yaldabaoth. It's a lion-headed serpent that continues the Ouroboros. It just keeps consuming and reproducing, and we're trapped in this thing. The Buddhists say, this is a dream. This is a play. This is God playing hide and seek with himself because there's nothing else to do. So we might as well create a reality. Then the Christians say, this is all for the good of the world and God loves you, da-da-da-da-da. These are the three different spectrums of our perspective of what's actually happening, which is the Buddhists are probably the most right. This is Maya Samsara. This is God's dream. When it's bad, it's because God's going through a little nightmare. When it's good, God's having a good part of his dream. God's wrestling with all ideas. He's producing novelty, new ideas, new experiences for the sake of experience. That's probably the most true. Like Christ says, evil cannot be evil in and of itself. The very basis of nature can't be evil. That's a human concept. It has to be neutral, or all things couldn't be, but all things can be. Therefore, it has to be neutrality. Therefore, the universe as a whole cannot be evil, but it also cannot be good. And that's the divine terror. That's the thing when Christ said, there's many things I have not told you. And that's why Thomas said, if I told you the things that Christ told me, apostles, you would stone me to death, because the universe isn't good. It isn't evil either, but it's not good. It's a neutrality. It's a sandbox. Why is there sacrifice? Because it's a human psychological force. When we believe when we give up something, that's how we give something in return. That's what sweat equity is. When you go to your job, you give up time and physical energy, and you are returned with money. We sacrifice, just like the story of Job, right? Job and Job. Owen Benjamin was talking about this, the Job and Job idea. Like, why is it the word the same? It's like, well, you go through a bunch of suffering to get something. Job goes through suffering to attain divine wisdom from God. You go to your job to attain cash. We sacrifice to feel inside that we deserve the blessing we get. We need to suffer with eustress, not distress, eustress, positive stress. We need to suffer and work to gain the things, because if we get things for free, we lose our minds. That's why communism always crumbles, because everyone's getting shit for free and they lose their minds. So sacrifice is an inherent mechanic of human beings. We want to work. We've always, like in nature, you have to work to get. We're programmed to sacrifice in order to receive blessing. It's inherent in the universe. That's why sacrifice exists. We took it to a magical level. Yeah. So sacrificing of animals is to a magical level, but it's dark magic, Zach. And this is exactly what happens with Jesus. Yeah, this is black magic. This is called taking the shortcut on the left-hand path. You understand? Because what they do is when they set, this is really important, guys. This is how we'll end this. Zach, it's a great question. And thank you for asking it. Pay attention to everything I'm saying to you right now. It's extremely important. Take a nice deep breath. We covered this in how to pray, but I'm going to cover it in a deeper way right now. When you sacrifice an animal, like young Thug did with the goats, to get all his power and money. And they tried to make it so you couldn't talk about it in court. Think about it. Why are all the rappers doing black magic? Rick Ross. Anyway, so I won't say too much more about that. When you sacrifice the animal, listen to what I'm saying. I'm giving you like such a deep, divine piece of esoteric occult wisdom. This is at like the bottom floor of the secret societies. What I'm about to tell you is so important. So everyone listen very closely and never forget what I'm about to tell you. When you sacrifice an animal and it bleeds out, you're basically, based on the sacrifice, based on how you set it up, what symbols you use, what incantations, how many days you spend preparing, all of those things are manifesting a psychic energy inside of you. When you make the sacrifice, you know something has just lost its life. It's made the ultimate sacrifice. You pull the energy from that. And what you do is you cover 21 days of fasting and a one knife swipe. Because you've taken the life of something. It gets a powerful energy. But what you've done is you've delegated the sacrifice to another living being. It's evil because you've done something against something else's will and against their consent, which creates a dark energy in the morphogenetic field. It manifests demons, and that's why they summon these demons that do terrible things. They have to do it the evil way. So what you're doing is you're compacting like a 21-day fast sacrifice, which would be the right-hand path, for a left-hand path knife swipe, which only takes a couple minutes. That's why evil people do it, because they take shortcuts at the expense of other people, and that's why it's black magic. And what is Christ then, folks? What is the crucifixion of Christ? Not the symbolic version, like crucified by the truth. What is Rome crucifying Christ and the Pharisees? Same thing, but on a way higher level, because they took the purest, greatest being who should have been crowned king of the world, and they killed that person. You couldn't make a more powerful black magic sacrifice. Yeah. And what did it produce? Here's the big part: 2,000 years of spiritual imprisonment of the entire human race. Done purposely to catch the power of an aeon, the age of Pisces, to control us for 2,000 years off killing that one person. And they're about to try to do it again to control Aquarius. And we need to stop it. That's what's happening here. Don't let them do it again. Don't even let them try to sacrifice those heifers. You want to know a big part of what's happening in the Middle East, why it's happening? Because they were just about to sacrifice all those heifers for Solomon's temple, which would have caused a lot of power. It would have been one more jump before they do the divine sacrifice. Well, not divine, but their divine sacrifice. They're stepping in now because that part of the Middle East is about to do a really, really crazy black magic ritual. And so a bunch of people are stepping in to stop them. This is the literal war for humanity and the soul of the world for the next 2,000 years, because they ride off the astrological clock. So if you commit that black magic sacrifice right at that moment and enter into the new age, you can control the power of the new age. Aquarius can go one of two ways. It can go left hand or right hand. Pisces went left hand. It went dark. That's why it's been so hard for 2,000 years. That's why it's been so crazy. Because Christ didn't survive. Right? This time Christ needs to survive, and the Christ consciousness culture needs to live on. That's how we take Aquarius to the right place. Okay? Because Aquarius can be expressed in two different ways. The fundamental expression of Aquarius exists in the higher dimensions, but it can express itself as absolute tyranny and wisdom through robotics and AI, or absolute liberation and infinite wisdom in human beings. It is Aquarius is the pouring of the water, the release of wisdom, understanding, et cetera, et cetera. They're trying to do it with transhumanism. They're trying to catch on to that energy. Do you understand that when we were in the age of, which one's the bull? Taurus. When we were in the age of Taurus, you know what was happening? Agricultural revolution and beast of burden carrying farm equipment. Think that's an accident? No, not an accident. The how the realm operates is based on these deeper astrological ideas. So during Taurus is when the agricultural revolution, it was started ramping up, and they started using bulls to pull farm equipment, and it redefined how we exist. Like, the agricultural revolution changed everything. That was the population explosion, because before that, when we were nomadic, women barely ever had enough fat on their body to produce children. So women usually had a child every maybe 3-5 years or something like that. Agricultural revolution allowed us for women to bear children whenever. So there was this giant population explosion. Women were always pregnant and caring for kids. They went inside to take care of children. Men went out and built civilization for men. So then it took a dark turn, because no longer did we have the mutual society where females were responsible for very important aspects of communal living, which they were always in charge of, and men were in charge of other things. Men became in charge of everything because that force of that aeon took a dark turn. But understand that we didn't do it purposely to be bad. We just made a little mistake. We were like, oh, wow, we can have babies all the time. Maybe we should be more careful about this. You know what I mean? Instead, it was like women ended up being pregnant all the time. They couldn't be a part of politics or city building and this type of stuff. And they were left out of the equation because men were building a world for men, whether they realized it or not, because they were doing a lot of this subconsciously. And so it happens in all these ages. We have to be hyper cognizant of the force and the energy we put at the beginning of an age and all throughout the age. And this is what's going down right now. All right, so I should get out of here. I said I'd do about 1 hour and 15. We went 1 hour and 30. But this was great, guys. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah. So I'm actually doing the live on YouTube as well. So if you click on my link at the top of my profile, the very top link is the link to this. So when you go on that video, you'll just be able to click follow if you want to follow the YouTube. If you want the YouTube, link's right in the bio at the top. Okay. Again, thank you, everyone. We'll be doing a Nature of Evil one for a while, every week on Wednesday. And then every 2 weeks, we'll be doing just a Q&A for everyone that helped me out about a month ago with donations. God bless you guys. This is really fun. I love doing these free classes. So looking forward to the next one next Wednesday, same time, 3:33 p.m. Pacific time. Love you guys. Have a great night.